Hi friends, here's a quick tip on processing HDR images in Adobe Lightroom. If you're like me and you shoot a lot of HDR, for example, I almost always shoot auto exposure bracketed sequences when I'm doing drone imagery because I'm outdoors and it's bright and it's contrasty, and that's an ideal situation for HDR. In order to process these in Lightroom, there's a couple different ways you could do it. You could select the group of three files. So here, for example, my bracketed sequence. And I could right click and choose Photo Merge HDR. I'm not going to do that because it will take time. And that would do them, one set at a time. Well, a faster way to do this is to batch process your HDR. In order to do that, though, you want to group your images together and then select all and batch process. Well, you can stack or group these images together by selecting all three images in the sequence like this, and Command or Control G will group them into a stack. Okay, and you just select the next three and do the same thing and so on. And that works, but it's tedious to do it that way. So there's a faster way. Let me unstack those. And that is to use auto stack by capture time. So watch this. I'm going to select all of the images in this folder. This was a new import from a shoot this morning. So they're all selected. They're all from the same shoot. But because when you do auto exposure bracketing, your images occur in very quick succession. It goes click, 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 and you've got all three images or all five images or however many you're doing. So we can use Lightroom to stack these images into groups based on the time difference between the images. So I've got them all selected, and then I'm just going to right click on one of the selected files, choose stacking, and then auto stack by capture time. Now you can adjust the time in between stacks, and since the three images in the sequence are in very quick succession, but there's gaps between the sequences, keeping the time between stacks at 1 second, which is the lowest amount, should do the trick. Whoops, not 0, it's 1. There we go. There we go. That should do the trick for us. So watch this. I'm going to click stack, and bingo. All of these images have 3 image stacks, and they're ready to go with batch processing for HDR. And so now that they're stacked, I can select all the stacks. They're already selected, but I could do Command or Control A to select them. Right click on one of the selected stacks, choose Photo Merge HDR, and away it goes in the background. I don't even get the dialog box for HDR. Now I should point out that the HDR processing is using whatever HDR settings I used previously in Lightroom. So specifically with regard to ghosting settings, if you're shooting images that maybe have some movement within the frames and you want to use ghosting, do one stack first just by itself and make sure that your HDR processing settings are set up the way you want for the rest of the images. The processing for ghosting does take a little bit longer, so if you don't have any movement in your frames and you don't need the de-ghosting function, then leave it set to off, and they'll process a little faster. But the nice thing about this is all happening in the background. I can go on and work on other stuff in Lightroom or other programs while this is going, and when it's done, just come back and start working on my finishing, on my tone mapping. But there you go, a quick way to work through your HDR brackets in Adobe Lightroom.